Something that I've gotten really good at in the past few years is managing my motivation, because feeling unmotivated is super normal. It happens to everyone. Every day, people are out there feeling unmotivated, but life gets a lot easier when you have a little toolkit of things that you can do when you notice yourself feeling unmotivated. In this video, I'm sharing 9 things that you can do when you notice that you're feeling unmotivated, when you don't want to do the essay, when you don't want to do the workout, when you don't want to answer the email. Starting with idea number 1, set the table. So instead of forcing yourself to do a task with that strong, like, you've got to get it done energy, just set the table for the task. Setting the table is about softening a task through preparation, designing your environment to make the task easier for your future self to do. It helps with this to be really clear that, like, you don't actually have to do the task. All you're doing is setting the table so that when your future self is ready, the table is there. It is set and ready for them to get started super easily. For example, if the task that you are avoiding is answering your emails, which I know it has been for me lately, setting the table could look like quickly deleting any obvious junk emails, quickly categorizing all of your emails. You might clear your desk so it feels really minimal and easy to sit down and start answering those emails. After you have set the table, sometimes you're gonna find immediately, yes, you wanna do the task. Like, you're ready to start, which is great. But you also might find that you need to do another one of the tactics in this video to really get your mind ready for this task. Idea number 2, change the start line. So instead of starting at the start of a task as you would normally, you could try starting in the middle. You could try starting at the end. You could try starting wherever you feel the least resistant to starting. This doesn't work with all tasks, but it does work with a lot. So just ask yourself, like, what part of this task do I feel least resistant towards or most pulled to do? This can do a few things. So firstly, it can help you to see your task in parts rather than as a whole, which in itself will help you to feel less overwhelmed, because a lot of the times when you are overwhelmed, you are seeing your task as this big, like, huge chunky thing. Breaking it down for your mind really helps. Secondly, it helps you to feel more in control. Sometimes when we procrastinate, it's simply about feeling like we don't have control over our time, feeling like every task is a have to or a should. When you give yourself a little bit more control over where you start, you feel like it's more of a choice, especially helpful with tasks that you just really don't want to do but have to be done. So instead of starting at the beginning of your reading, start at the end. Instead of completing the actual form that you need to send off, start drafting the email to the person that you'll end up sending the form to. Idea number 3. A belief that I've generated in probably the past 6 months is that if we all just had a bit more boredom in our lives, we would all be far more productive people. I really stand by that, and also it is a really easy thing to weave into your life. Most people have access to boredom. Almost always when I do these, like, really low dopamine, mindless activities, or I force myself to be bored, I will end up feeling like a flash of motivation to do something that is genuinely interesting and helpful. I think sometimes when we feel low motivation, we're like, well, I'll just give my brain a little break by hopping on TikTok, or I'll, watch a show or do something that's really mentally stimulating and a little bit addictive. When instead, if we just forced ourselves to be a little bit bored and gave our brain some space to breathe, oftentimes it'll just generate motivation to do something else after some time. If one of the things that you've been struggling to get motivated to do is working out, let me introduce to you Copilot. Copilot is my way of making staying consistent with working out easy. I think a lot of people with working out can find it easy to be on again, off again, and with Copilot, they blend tech, a real-life human expert, and personalization to make keeping up with working out easy. So you get your own virtual trainer via an app, and they'll create tailored workouts to suit you specifically. They will customize everything to cater to your goals, your schedule. I've been with Copilot for what feels like 2 years, maybe now, ages. And it feels like I've had so many different seasons, and still I've been using Copilot because throughout the different seasons, there have been changes made to suit my needs. Earlier in this year, I went through like a bit of mini burnout, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna need to switch things up because I'm not keeping up with everything, and my coach was great about it. And even through that period of like deep resistance to doing anything, I had Copilot keeping me moving. I have a trainer, Andrew. He is absolutely lovely. And whenever you have any needs or questions, you can just text your coach and be like, hello, what's up? How do I do this? They'll send you a video back or a text response. And also, if you get a coach that you don't fully vibe with, you can change coaches at any time. That's totally an option for you. And because I work out from home, I can sneak Copilot in whenever I want to in my schedule. It's super flexible. You can sign up to Copilot using my link down in the description below. You can also use the QR code that is on the screen to get 14 days for free with your own expert personal trainer. Idea number 4. So this is really good for tasks that hold absolutely no interest to you. They seem boring or they're just not up your alley, but they just have to get done. Choose a trait to practice while you do the task. This is about making the task feel more fun and interesting, but also more worth your time. Because sometimes when we resist things, it's simply because we're like, that's just a waste of time. We know logically it's not a waste of time, but part of us feels like it's a waste of time. So for example, if you need to make 10 customer check-in calls a day, it's part of your job, you don't like it, it's not up your alley, you procrastinate it every single day. You might choose to practice a trait like warmth, like empathy. And part of this will mean that you can grow more from the basic mundane tasks that you are doing, but also in a way it's about gamifying your tasks. It's about making them feel more fun, more interesting, just more worthwhile. Idea number 5. Procrastination can be a superpower if you let it be a superpower. If you have a task that you don't want to do so much, there's a good chance that you'd be willing to do other, still not very appealing tasks just in order to procrastinate doing the big non-appealing task. Obviously, you can't use this as something as like urgent. It has a deadline, it needs to be done. But sometimes purposeful procrastination can be really helpful. Deliberately choose to procrastinate on the task that you are most resisting, but tell yourself, well, I can only procrastinate on that if I get this other like big hairy task done. So long as that is a task that you like resist a little bit less. Idea number 6. One of my go-tos on a very like trash day is to call my sister and be like, hey, can I have you on FaceTime while I get some stuff done? I'm really struggling to get myself moving today. Technically, my sister does live in my house, so this does seem a little bit odd, but she's in a separate area to me. She needs to do her own thing. And as soon as I have her on the phone, like my motivation just doubles, triples even, depending on how bad the day is. This is a technique called body doubling. You've probably heard of it. It hasn't been studied, but for a lot of people, it just works. If you have something that you want to do, but you're struggling to get it done, just having someone there with you as you do it over the phone, in person, gives you motivation. You can also do this virtually with a tool like FocusMate, which I'll have linked down below. There's like a monthly cost. You can book in with strangers. I do find that really helpful, but I also find it really helpful to work alongside people that I know. That gives it like a little extra oomph for me. It's really good if you can find like 1 or 2 people in your life that are up to doing that kind of thing regularly. Family members obviously are good, but also just really close friends will do too. Idea number 7. So there is a whole book behind the idea of who, not how. And the premise behind it is that instead of asking ourselves all of the time, how do I get myself to do this? We instead ask, who can help me with this? So for every how in Dan Sullivan, the author's life, he likes to find a who. This is totally something that you can do in your life, maybe not to the scale of the author because he probably has a lot of money to pay people to do things, but for whatever task you are resisting, you can definitely ask, what skills would make this task easier and who do I know that has them? Who do I know that's done something similar and what can I learn from them? Are there any online communities that can help me with this? Are there any small parts of this task I could get help with? Idea number 8. So a lot of procrastination is feeling like everything is a have to. The tasks that we most dread usually feel like chores. Everything feels like a chore. Like we don't have a choice in them, but we have to do them. And it's that lack of choice that can keep us resisting. Even our most fun and interesting goals can turn into chores if we keep on telling ourselves that we have to do them. A should reversal is about accepting deeply that you don't actually have to do the task at hand. Like technically, you have complete choice over whether you do it or not. There may be consequences if you don't do it, but you have a choice in the matter. And secondly, changing the task from a should into a choice. So instead of like, I have to do this task, I should do this task, it turns into I'm choosing to do this task because of X, Y, Z. So because it helps me to achieve my value of blank. Because it'll help me to feel blank. Idea number 9. So there is this form of therapy called internal family systems where basically you have all of these different parts of yourself and usually you're working with a therapist to communicate with those different parts between those different parts. Think of that movie Inside Out, how she has all of those little like cartoon characters living inside of her brain that represent all the different feelings, kind of like that. So this strategy is all about communicating with the part of yourself that is most resisting the task ahead of you. And you're communicating with this part in a really like compassionate, understanding, kind way. You want to set a timer for 20 minutes and you can always try to reframe this so that it feels like a form of procrastination. You can be like, well, I'm going to put off this task for another 20 minutes by doing this part's work. And then you want to ask yourself, if my resistance towards this task had a voice, what would it be saying? Consider like, how is that part of you trying to protect you right now? What's it scared of? What assumptions is it making? Sign up to Copilot using my link down in the description below. You can also use the QR code that is on the screen. If you also want to learn more about creating consistency and follow through, I have a video on that. It's called 7 Actionable Ways to Be More Consistent. I'm going to have a link on the screen as well as down below. I appreciate you so much and I will see you soon.